And for the sake of this meeting, I don't think we needed a quorum, but I think we would have one if we did. So with that said, let me just do some really brief remarks in terms of the purpose of this council and what the intent was when we created it back in 2018. So Statute 51-1056 was created to really bring together the entities that touch families and children to give them the tools that they needed to really have a hands up and being able to live and thrive in society. And so as you listen to all of the members who are part of this council, each one of them touch families in various ways, and that's why we wanted to bring everybody together. I will say that in attending meetings over the last couple of years, somehow we still have silos and we are not addressing those issues the way I intended it to. Certainly empowering families to live well have not met since probably 2 years COVID hit. That changed a lot of things. We didn't meet those whole 2.5 years or so. And this is the first meeting since the rise of COVID in our state and across the country, across the world. So with that said, in attending some of the meetings I've attended here lately, and I don't want to call names, but there are so many different groups that meet to try to address the need of families and children. Seems to me we still have this breakdown in communication, and even when you have different entities attending meetings, somehow maybe the person attending may not be the right person for another committee who may be doing some work along that area, and that communication is still not getting across. And so I was thinking about that this morning in terms of how we ensure that we are all connected, because we all have the same purpose in terms of wanting to see families thrive, to see children be able to grow and to become the best that they can be. And so I would be open to that, because I'm thinking about the Children's Cabinet, which is a large entity that brings many stakeholders together. And yet in that meeting, I remember the last meeting that I went to, they sent communication out, and I asked them how was it sent to us, just the legislators. And I think they may have sent an email. And I said, wow, that may be a good form of communication. That may not be the best form for legislators. So we need to figure out, how do we bring all of these resources together, eliminate silos, because we are all working for the same goal, to make sure that we are helping our families to thrive. So with that said, I've had a great friend who wanted to make sure that this council was resurrected. And I want to give you an opportunity to just come and greet us here at the table, because you have played a pivotal role in this entire piece. You and I have been working together for the past, God, doesn't seem like it's been that long. I didn't realize I started that legislation back in 2018. And I actually believe it started before then under the former Secretary Marquita Garner Walters. So if you would, just introduce yourself to everybody, and I just want you to just talk about what you see and what you would like to see accomplished.
Thank you, Senator Barrow. Tom Costanza with the Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops. And want to thank Senator Barrow for her vision. You know, in the preamble of this act, it says some profound things. It says, the legislature found that poverty is one of the greatest enemies of human dignity and the family unit, and undermines the general welfare of all our families. We're ranked 49th in child poverty, 49th. And so I was really emboldened by the senator, and when we, of course, the Louisiana Conference of Catholic Bishops, one of our priorities are the option for the poor from our Catholic social teaching. And so this act really, it was well formulated. It asked for a coordinated system. It asked that there is a certain government bears a certain responsibility, although we know there's both personal and social responsibility. So we did convene, like the senator said, and Catholic Charities throughout the United States has been working on poverty alleviation. That's our core mission. But so we developed a few pilots, and today you're going to hear presentations. So I would hope that, maybe we could use this next year of really drilling down on poverty alleviation strategy, what works across the United States, what could work in Louisiana, how could we coordinate across all departments, how could we use maybe a common assessment tool, how could we develop standards of care, and that poverty is not intractable. It's not. It's not something we have to live with. And as you can see in some of the presentations, we need to sort of outsmart poverty. So with that said, I think the general, we will have presentations from Catholic Charities. Both y'all did approve a grant a couple years ago, and so you'll hear an update from Catholic Charities in New Orleans and Catholic Charities in Baton Rouge. And also, I've been working with the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, who are running pilots across the United States, and they have a video presentation for y'all to see, to understand. I think theirs one is how to connect students in the community technical college system that drop out, but with a little intervention, they would stay in the community technical college system. So and then we've had success with Head Start. We've had success with the prison reentry population. We've had success with the homeless population. So today you'll just see a presentation, and hopefully it's an Advent season, right? We're in Advent, a season of hope. And I hope this could be a new day for Louisiana to continue to look at this important element of poverty and how we could uplift our families. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Costanza. And again, I just want to thank you for your fervent commitment to this issue. I mean, you are here at the Capitol literally every day when we're in session, and you're always fighting for families, and you're fighting for children, and you're fighting against the war on poverty. And when we look at the social determinants of health, it's all tied together. And it, like you said, it's not something we have to live with. You said one word that I'm going to hold on to, that I'm going to ask all of us to hold on to, which is hope, which is what we need to give to our communities, and we need to make sure that we give to our children. So with that said, I see like I kind of jumped ahead of myself.
Nope.
And so I'm going to ask my co-chair here, Sammy Guillory. They have brought him out of retirement and brought him back on board. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. I think Tom and the senator have taken most of my few prepared remarks that I was going to make, but welcome each of you, guests and members. I'm happy to help convene this meeting. Like the senator said, it's been a long time coming. We got deterred by different events, but we hope to move forward for this very important work, and I'm happy to be a part of it. She mentioned I was retired. I retired in 2020 after serving 33 years with DCFS, and I'm returned July 1st in this role. So I'm happy to be here. And I really appreciate you being here and for all of your work. And we'll move on, I guess, to the presentations.
All right, let the party begin. Introduce yourself, please, and
Hi
who
there,
you with.
My name is Kai, and I'm with Trepwise.
With who?
Trepwise.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to share the screen here.
Do we need to turn off the light? Do we have a copy of that in our information? Okay. Are all of you together?
Yes. So I'll explain all of that. So I am with Trepwise. We're a strategy-based consulting firm, and we'll be supporting the two Catholic charities with their evaluation.
Okay.
So just to give a quick overview, at Trepwise, we partner with purpose-driven organizations across sectors to create innovative strategies to foster equity and justice. For the Catholic Charities projects, we're providing evaluation support, but as a firm, we offer a variety of services. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, but as a firm, we offer a variety of services, including organizational planning and systems coordination. If anyone has questions about our other work, I'm happy to share my contact information.
Where are y'all from again?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Okay. So will everybody fill out a card, a white card, and make sure that you give it to our. And you can give it to it afterwards. I'm just want y'all to go ahead and fill out a card for me. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so the program evaluation. Our role in this project is to evaluate the programs funded by DCFS. We're focusing on understanding how these programs are helping individuals and families achieve self-sufficiency. Specifically, we're looking at how their evidence-based frameworks are moving participants out of poverty and toward economic stability. So we're measuring outcomes across key areas, including employment, housing, parenting, and financial management. This evaluation will not only identify the successes, but also uncover insights to inform continuous improvement best practices. Taking a look at the timeline here, we're using a structured collaborative approach to ensure that we have a thorough and effective evaluation. So as you see in the summer of 2024, we started by aligning with the Catholic Charities on the evaluation objectives and questions before the program launches. Both organizations are currently actively delivering their services to the program participants, and they began their program intakes in July and September of 2024. So we are looking to complete the evaluation by summer of 2025. That's when the exit data will be collected. The evaluation briefs will be finalized in July, and then the findings will be available in August. But I will hand it over to Stephanie Mills to share more about CCANO.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So my name is Stephanie Mills. I'm with Catholic Charities, the Archdiocese of New Orleans.
Did you say Stephanie Mills?
Yes.
I thought I heard that correctly. You gonna hit a note for us? No, I'm just
I don't
playing.
think you would want me to do that. But a little bit about Catholic Charities. We are celebrating 100 years of service this year. And our service has been focusing on the poor and the vulnerable of our diocese. We have about 23 programs that offer in various areas within health, prosperity, justice, and crisis intervention. But for the purposes of the Pathways to Prosperity programs, we focused on our reentry program and our homeless services program. So our cornerstone is our reentry program, and it provides intensive case management services and workforce services to men and women returning home from incarceration that are residing in either Orleans, Jefferson, or St. Tammany parishes. Our homeless program provides intensive case management services as well as workforce services to families who are unhoused throughout our diocese. Both programs focus on clients becoming self-sufficient by providing rapid rehousing, benefits enrollments such as SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare, and direct assistance, which provides for the basic life needs of the clients that we serve. That could be anywhere from deposit assistance, rental assistance, clothing, and food for those who are participating in the program. So back in 2023, Catholic Charities conducted a community needs assessment which highlighted the economic insecurities in both urban and rural areas throughout our diocese. And what we found was that 20% of individuals that are in our diocese was in poverty. And 50% of those in our diocese is at or below the ALICE threshold. And so as a result, we started noticing a increase in calls right around the time of COVID for assistance. So we established a triage line that was able to triage the calls for assistance and kind of provide them the appropriate program that may best fit their needs. And in that triage line, we found that 70% of the calls that we were receiving was for assistance to cover basic utilities, rental assistance. And so that was concerning for us. And so we then had to establish, because of the overwhelming number of calls, we established a web-based service where callers can, you can, instead of calling in, you can email or fill out an online application to what services you might need. And with that, we found that 30% of the emails that we were receiving was for housing services. And so with our Cornerstone program, we wanted to highlight a few successes that we've had over the past 5 years. So we have serviced over 991 individuals returning home from incarceration. And of those, we've provided over 56,000 units of case management. And so those units are touches that the case managers have with these individuals coming home from incarceration. And of that, we spent about $1.1 million on direct assistance to the clients that we service, and that could be for food, shelter, clothing, whatever their basic needs are, we're able to assist them with that. And for our homeless services clients, over the past 5 years, we've assisted over 239 families. And so on average, our family size is about 3.4 individuals in those sizes. So that means we've touched over 812 homeless individuals over the past 5 years and provided over $4.7 million in direct assistance to those clients that we serve, mainly with deposit assistance and rental assistance for those families. And over 59,000 units of case management. And what we are extremely proud of is, to date, we still have 124 individual families that are still residing in the homes that we've placed them in. So with those case management services provided, they have been able to maintain those housing placements over the past 5 years. So we use what's called a life area survey. We use that tool to measure change throughout the individual client's duration in the program. And it measures the impact that we're having on the client over 20 different domains, which mainly focus on the social determinants of health. And each client is scored from 1 to 5, 1 being that they're in crisis, 2 they're invulnerable, 3 they're safe, 4 building capacity, and 5 they are empowered. And each client is assessed upon enrollment, and they are reassessed quarterly throughout the duration of their program. And then finally, again, when program is completed. And for our Cornerstone program, I just wanted to highlight a few of the social determinants where we've seen, in most areas, we've seen some incremental increases. But if you notice in housing, we have moved clients from the vulnerable point in entry to safe when their follow-up life area survey was reassessed 3 months later. So that was a large shift in moving clients from the crisis stage into that vulnerable population. And in the income, we have moved clients from being in crisis to in that vulnerable population. So within 3 months of being in the program, the case managers have provided those intensive services and had been able to see some change within the client's progress over that past 3 months. And so the current funding that we're receiving from DCFS right now, this funding is set to end at the end of the month, at the end of March. And so right now, we have enrolled 14 reentry clients and 21 clients within the homeless program, and we're gonna service 40 clients over the 1-year period. And so this is just a little basic demographic information on the clients that we have currently enrolled in the program. And so, as he indicated, TrepWise will be providing the evaluation for the clients that we service. And in that, we're looking at making sure that our clients have increased their income, and they're either maintaining employment status or increasing their employment status, making sure that they have long-term sustainable housing, and that housing costs are not a financial burden to them, and making sure that they have referrals to all of the necessary services that they may need, whether that be mental health services or substance abuse services, whatever they need, making sure that we're providing this holistic care to the clients that we're serving. And so that's what they're going to be focusing on with the evaluation and making sure that we're moving these clients forward. And I will turn it over to Catholic Charities Baton Rouge.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. My name is Stephanie Sterling, so Yes, yes. I'm the Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. And just to tell you a little bit about the Catholic Charities Diocese of Baton Rouge, we serve the most vulnerable. We serve the most vulnerable in our community, regardless of faith. And we provide a comprehensive array of services. We've been doing so for 60 years. This is our 60th year. Not quite as old as Catholic Charities Archdiocese of New Orleans, but we do cover 12 civil parishes. The program that I am here to talk with you about today is PACT, Parents and Children Together. It is a program that is based on 2 evidence-based practices: HIPPY, home instruction for the parents of preschool youngsters, an early childhood education parent engagement program that uses peer home visitors to teach the parents to be their child's first and best teacher. The trust in that relationship is already built in because the home visitors are from the community that they are working in. They look like the people they are working with, and they are very familiar with the people that are their clients. We serve particularly rural areas, and it's not an outside expert coming in to help the families. It's someone that they already know and trust. We also incorporate Vroom, which is an app-based program that helps parents engage with their child on everyday activities to help improve cognitive development in their children, ages 0 to 5. All of the families in our program have children ages 0 to 5 because we know that's where the biggest impact is made in a child's life. We employ a 2-generational approach, which works with both the parents and the child at the same time. It's an approach out of the Aspen Institute. The trauma-informed care is interweaved throughout our program using an intensive case management approach so that, just like Stephanie Mills said, so that all of the needs of the families are addressed. The program successes to date from 2017 to current are we have served 387 families. 90% of the children have improved their school readiness scores. We provide both a pre and post test, a multitude of pre and post tests of all the parents and children to assess the impact of the program over the course of a school year. And we've provided over 11,000 hours of home visits and case management touches or visits. 50% of the families increase the parent-child engagement. And as we know, when that is increased, the likelihood of abuse and neglect in the home are decreased. This program also impacts the other children in the home, not just the children ages 0 to 5, because of what the parents learn for their children that are 0 to 5. Currently, with partial funding from the DCFS Empowering Families Act, we're serving 59 families with 67 children. The demographics are predominantly African American, and we have a large Hispanic population as well due to the rural areas that we serve. We have a 92% retention rate, families returning year after year. So a family can start when their child is an infant, and there's a different curriculum each year of that child's life up to age 5. Some of the standards of care that we employ are the peer mentoring, which I mentioned, with the home visitors, and also we provided 60 hours of family group meetings. Each of those group meetings have different topics where the children and the parents are learning together, such as financial education, fire safety, literacy, how to use the library, how to obtain a library card. Also, the education that is provided for our trauma-informed care approach is a parenting skills class on by conscious discipline. Both staff and families have attended the conscious discipline classes. Our staff have been trained in mental health first aid so that they can recognize when a family is maybe in crisis or heading in that direction. Also, the Burns Depression and Anxiety screeners are given at pre and post tests, and the parents who score significantly on those are referred to mental health resources in the community. We provide a large array of other services at Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Baton Rouge that our clients can also partake in. Those include rent and utility assistance. Like Stephanie Mills said, that is our most requested assistance. We have over 700 calls a month just for rent and utilities to our agency. Uniforms, gas cards, Christmas gift, disaster response supplies as needed, baby care items, bus passes. We also have a Faithful mobile food pantry program that some of our clients are also enrolled in. We provide also SNAP outreach and enrollment assistance to clients. We provided over 700 other services to our clients besides the PACS program, just through Catholic Charities, Diocese of Baton Rouge. We've also made over 300 referrals to other community resources. Some of the other demographics are that 80% of our clients in the PACS program are living at the poverty level. Many of them are living in food deserts as well. The majority of our parents have a high school diploma or less. The social supports that we have helped families employ are indicated by our protective factor survey that we assess the families with at the beginning of their enrollment and at the end of the program at the end of the year. As we know, when protective factors increase in the home, the likelihood of abuse and neglect decrease. So over the average of our families increased 41% in family functioning and communication in the home. They know how to obtain concrete support at a higher rate after having been in our program. And they have increased in their social support system as well, knowing that there's someone they can call in their community, a family or a friend, if they are in crisis or need a listening ear. In addition, the knowledge of their child's development is increased significantly because of their involvement in the program. This also decreases the likelihood of abuse and neglect because the parents have a more realistic idea of what the child is capable of at what age. So, as you know, there are many challenges to serving our rural communities and challenges, barriers to education, higher education for our rural communities and higher levels of employment. Educational access is a big one. Transportation is also a large barrier because there is a lack of public transportation in our rural areas. Child care, that is across the board, our rural and urban areas. Child care and quality child care is a barrier. And broadband access and technology. So many of our families who might be able to access online classes at a community college are not able to do so because they might not have a computer, they might not have broadband access. Many of our rural areas, may go out for several days at a time. And so those are some areas that I encourage the committee and the legislators to help us address those barriers for our rural areas. And just like Stephanie Mills said, this funding that you guys have awarded to us will be ending this March. So we will be able to serve significantly fewer families if the funding is not renewed. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your presentation. I was taking notes and looking into who was all here. So let me first say, I want to thank everyone who is attended today, who's a part of the council, who is sitting in for someone who's been appointed to serve here. I greatly appreciate you taking out your time to be here today because this is definitely a very important issue, and you being here actually exemplifies that. So I want to say thank you to each of you. I do want to say there are some key folks. I say key, but key items. So, because I think there are like 5 pillars that we need to have, and I'm not sure if they're represented here today. But going forward, I want to make sure that we are represented here. You brought up another. Now, to me, I think it's a very important issue, which is broadband. Having access to the internet and having a computer are becoming essential. It at one point it was not. Today it is. And most of the time, most people have a phone, right? But if you don't have access to being able to use it through having broadband or et cetera, and we all started during COVID with children who had to do their homework, and the parents had to go to either a McDonald's or library and sit very closely so that their kids can access the internet from those systems, how important that was. So I want to make sure that we have all of the right players at this meeting. And then as I'm a part of other meetings, I'm going to make sure that we are all at the table. Because if we're not at the table, then something is falling through the crack, and we cannot afford that. And I totally agree with Mr. Costanza. This does not have to be. There are some things that we can do to eliminate and certainly give people more hope and brighten their future. So I want to ask a couple of questions. If anybody have a question, so I'm not quite sure which button you need to press. Let me see. Let me look at the. I think yeah, to raise your hand, and then I will come to you. So going to you, Miss Stephanie from Baton Rouge. as it relates to the clients, how do you guys receive your clients? Are they referred, or is these individuals who called in? Tell me the process of how a person can receive services.
It's through a multitude of ways. They can either call in. Most of our families are referred word of mouth by other families in the community that have been in our program for this PACT program. But anyone can call our office to access any of our programs or go online, fill out a contact form.
Is there a qualification process, or is it just as needed?
Program, it's as needed, but
Okay.
it's for families in Point Capee Parish, St. Helena Parish, and East Baton Rouge Parish.
Okay. And I was going to ask you the predominant zip code that y'all serve, especially in East Baton Rouge Parish, if you would have that information.
The predominant zip code is, as far as I know, 70805 area.
Okay. Because you brought up the transportation piece. I know that you also said or kind of alluded to rural areas, but I'm wondering if that's an issue also because Baton Rouge is not considered really rural, there's some areas that are considered rural or they don't receive as much services, and broadband is still a problem in Baton Rouge as well.
Yeah, so the transportation challenge is more in our rural areas.
Okay.
Because there's a lack of public transportation. But some of our families do have transportation challenges in accessing the bus system. They may not have the funds to do so, but we are at times able to provide bus passes to families who are able to access the bus system.
Okay. And as it relates to, you mentioned a couple of issues. You talked about child care assistance, transportation, broadband. But I wrote down, do you guys also assist people who may need help with SNAP benefits or things of that sort?
Yes, we can help them apply for SNAP.
Okay. And so I've heard, and I don't know, but I'm going to find out, that the child care assistance program is a nightmare to navigate. Is that true?
From my understanding, there's a long waiting list.
Okay. But the process itself, is it hard to navigate?
I couldn't speak to that.
Okay. Someone made a comment about that the other day in a meeting I was in, and I wasn't aware of that. Okay. And then Stephanie Mills, kind of same line of questioning in terms of like, how do you guys receive your clients? Are they referred, word of mouth, or how do you guys receive your clients?
So it's both. So a lot of clients hear about is word of mouth from other clients that have participated through the program, and they call in, but they have certain criteria that they have to meet
Okay.
in order to qualify for the program.
So what's the criteria?
So, for instance, for our homeless services program, you have to be homeless, not couch surfing, not living with a family member. You have to be what's considered street homeless in order to qualify for the program. We also take referrals directly, part of the continuum of care, through Unity for our area. And so they transfer those cases over to us for families who meet the criteria. And for our reentry program, we get referrals directly from the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
We also receive referrals from community providers that we use, and from general word of mouth as well.
So for the population that is transitioning from incarceration, you guys also assist them with, so I'm assuming, and you could tell me how that works, with jobs, with housing, what's all, I guess, involved in that?
So initially, when the client, we begin working with them prior to them even being released
Okay.
from
So
incarceration.
is that like a 6-month period prior to, or?
So it could be up to 6 months before
Okay.
they get released.
Okay.
So the case managers go into the prisons and assess them for their basic needs, and whatever that might be, we start to work towards those.
Okay.
So it's always employment, of course. About 70% of the clients that we service in the reentry program need housing.
Okay.
So we start out with transitional and then move forward from there.
Okay. I think that may be all I have in terms of a line of questioning. I guess I'm kind of thinking about housing, because I find that housing primarily seems a big issue. When I serve on the Child Death Review Panel, and last week we actually met, and there were 5 cases that they pulled it wasn't the only children that passed, unfortunately, and we are leading the country in child death. But all these children were 2 and under, and one of the things that I noticed as being a common thread was housing. And so that's one of the things that I'm really beginning to take a look at, because housing seemed to be a huge barrier in terms of stability for families, in terms of a level of continuity, affordability, and all those things. And so I was going to ask you, like, what does housing look like for them? Because I know that now there's a whole litany in the application process. Now I'm learning that there are so many fees that have to be paid to even put in an application. I'm just amazed. Like I heard someone tell me the other day, with the housing authority, I think every person that lives in a house has to do an application, have to submit an application and pay a fee. That doesn't make sense to me. I can see you wanting to know about every person, but for every person to have to pay a fee, that for me is problematic, and I need to understand that better. But anyway, I'm just alluding to some of the things that I'm learning as I'm going to these meetings, and I'm beginning to hear myself.
I mean, it's a huge challenge across the board for all clients throughout any program that Catholic Charities has. Housing has become an issue. The cost of housing for the clients that we serve, we've had individuals whose rent has increased $300-400 in a very short period of time, and they just cannot afford to pay it. And so we're seeing somewhat of a cycle where we have assisted the clients. You may have gotten them stable with housing, and they could afford that housing. They have employment that is able to meet that income. But now, with the cost of the housing increasing, they're coming back and calling for assistance because they can no longer afford to pay their rent. And so, unfortunately, because of the number and the volume of calls that we get for assistance, we are just unable to meet that need. We do our best to try to triage those who are, facing eviction, but sometimes they're owing $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in back rent. The case managers try to establish relationships with the landlords to see if we can work through some type of a payment plan where we can pay a portion and we get other community providers to pay a portion, and just to get them current if they promise not to evict that individual. And we have found that to be somewhat successful, but some landlords want all their money and they want it now. And so it's becoming more of a challenge, and I know Stephanie can probably attest to some of that as well. And
Yes, same challenges with being able to help folks with rent and utility assistance. We do receive funding through Emergency Food and Shelter Grant, and that is only for the East Baton Rouge Parish and Tangipahoa parishes that we serve, of the 12 parishes we serve. So we're only able to help individuals in those parishes with rent and utilities unless we have other donations and other funding sources for other communities. And so a lot of the challenges, we just do not have the funds to assist the number of folks who call for assistance. It's a very small percentage that we can actually help.
So I'm not sure if you ladies would know this question, if this is a Tom Costanza question. The funding that they have, is this the funding that we allocated?
for assistance, for rent and utility assistance?
No,
No.
for the grant that's ending in March.
Sure. Yeah, so this council approved, it was a $225,000 allocation out of state general fund to the Department of Children's and Family Services. Of that allocation, $100,000 went to each Catholic Charities agency, and y'all just received an update on how they're using those funds. Plus, it's required to have an evaluation. So $25,000 was with Trepwise to do the evaluation. But as he showed the timeline, and they're explaining that timeline is ending fairly soon for that block of state general funds that you helped allocate to the Department of Children and Family Services.
So with that small allotment, you guys have been able to serve, I think I saw your numbers were 91.
So we have 40 we're going to be servicing
40?
with that
Okay.
allocation. And of that, we have been using that to help individuals get off the street and provide them transitional housing. And that's that temporary housing, so they're no longer sleeping in the cars or, under bridges, and provide them that temporary housing until the case managers could work with them to provide them with long-term, permanent housing.
How many families have y'all helped?
So we have 35.
When I say families, I mean mom and dad with children sleeping in cars.
So 20 with
Wow.
with these funds. We've serviced 20 families, yes. And one of which had 8 children, a mother and a father. And he worked as a mover. And that only, you get paid if you work. If you don't work, you do not get paid. And so they called in to the case manager one day, and we used these funds to be able to purchase groceries, because he was just using his income to purchase food for the household. And so these are the type of calls that we get for service of family. It's a total of family of 9 that are homeless. So to be able to provide that financial support to them, these funds was able to really assist us with being able to provide the necessary supports needed for that family.
Okay. And Ms. Stephanie, how many families?
59 families.
59. Okay.
But we use a braided funding, so this is a partial funding for this program. We have a couple of other funders for this program.
Okay. I'm just looking at the amount of money that I think is making an impact, right? So that's a small investment, in my opinion, for what I think would be a great rate of return. And I'd like to see how these families are doing in a year, right, from now, because hopefully we have given them hope and they are moving forward. I don't see anybody buttons on. Are there any questions for them? Yeah. So let me see, Berthelot?
Good morning.
on.
All right. My name is Sarah Berthelot. I work with the Louisiana Association of United Ways, and I serve as a project lead for the ALICE Research Project. And so I'm so grateful that y'all are incorporating the ALICE measure in your work. And I want to thank you for your work. It's so important. You spoke about, I think both of you referenced work that was focused on helping people get jobs or maybe move from part-time to full-time jobs. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And whenever you reference measurement as it relates to jobs, I noticed the measure was full-time, part-time to full-time, or no job to job. Is there any measure or anything in there that takes a look at the earnings? Because if the earnings, with the ALICE measure, it teaches us that if someone isn't able to afford the basics and reach that ALICE threshold of earnings, they're at risk of falling, not being successful in their independence. And so I was just wanting you to talk a little bit more about that work and how you, just anything you want to share related to that component.
Yeah, so one of our social determinants, and I think we had a slide that showed, we do look at income. The case managers assess what the client earning potential is based on their education, their experience, and such. And so once we've determined that, we work with them to set goals as to what are some short-term career goals that you might have and some long-term career goals. And the case managers start working with them in making incremental steps towards those goals. And some of that might just be helping them to gain a TWIC card so that they can go and get a better job, a better paying job from what they have now, participating in some type of training development program. So we do what's looked at as individualized case management. So we don't do what's called a cookie cutter approach to dealing with the clients. It's based on what their needs and what their desires are to move their life forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any other comment from Baton Rouge?
The families that we serve, especially in the rural areas, are challenged with obtaining a higher education so they can get better paying jobs. So that's what I would say about that. We also do individualized case management and goal setting with the clients. And those are the challenges that I mentioned at the end, prevent a lot of our families from getting better paying jobs than minimum wage jobs, which doesn't even reach a living wage.
No. And do you find that child care assistance or child care barriers play a major role in the job pursuits? And then there's just one other thing I wanted to ask. I work closely with the Louisiana 211 network. And so I was curious if Louisiana 211 is helping to bring families like the PACT program in the parishes that you serve. Are they a referral source for you for that? And if not, I'd like to work with you to make sure it's captured, so that families that don't know someone in the program or. So do y'all work with the 211 network in your community?
Yes, we do. And they do send us referrals quite often. I talk to them very often.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
We do also work with the 211 network.
Okay.
But we have a very limited capacity of the number of families we can serve because of funding restrictions.
Okay.
Usually have a waiting list for our PACT programs.
Okay. Okay. Well, if there's any process improvements, where you work so closely with people that are in the most need. And so if there's any process improvements that we should work on, I'd love to hear from you and work with our network partners with you on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Berthelot, and you brought up some very good points. I'm glad that you did ask that question. I don't see any additional questions, and so is the University of Notre Dame, they're here? Oh, no, they're doing a recording, right? Okay. So let's get ready to hear from them. Okay, so I just been advised that this is about 18 minutes for everyone. So if we have any questions, Mr. Costanza, who do we direct those to?
I'll field them and get back.
Okay.
They couldn't make the first meeting that we had, but I'm in connection with them. So please, I will take good notes and get back to them.
Okay, thank you. While we are waiting on
Good
their,
morning. My name is Rachel Fulcher Dawson. I am the head of policy and impact at the Wilson Sheehan Lab for Economic Opportunities at the University of Notre Dame. And I'm here to talk to you about our work at LEO to partner rigorous research with innovative social service programs to create evidence that can help impact the lives and the trajectory of lives of people experiencing poverty in the United States. And so I'm going to walk through a couple of slides here that explain a bit about our lab and also talk through how we might be able to partner with folks in Louisiana to do more good things and help create impact for those in poverty. So what I'd like to start with really is talking through what we at LEO do. And I apologize for my tech skills here, but I'm doing my best. So if you think about LEO, our real goal as a research lab centered in Northern Indiana is to first start with the innovators. So we really work to find innovative providers around the country. Those are mostly nonprofits, but we also partner with local and state governments. We then teach providers about impact evaluations, how they work, how they can be useful as tools for leaders in amazing social service organizations to understand the impact of their work and to scale up what's working and to modify what might not be working as great. And so after we do the education piece, we overlay research design on the anti-poverty program. So this looks like a true partnership where it's the researchers working with the providers running programs to really understand how the program enrolls people, how people learn about the program, and how they are then put into the treatment program itself. And once we complete a research study, or as we complete a research study, we really view it as iterative so that it's not us as researchers saying, here's what you should be doing, or here's what we're learning. It's here's what we're learning, here's how you might interpret that. And providers taking that information and saying, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense. We want to dig in on some part of our programming or understand why it's showing something that we didn't expect or showing some great thing and really learn more from that. And then ultimately, as we create the evidence with the partners, we want to share the findings and help support scale where it makes sense. As you all know, better than me, poverty in Louisiana is a significant challenge. And so, almost 20% of the population is experiencing poverty. And this is, of course, especially true for children in your state, where, they experience the second highest child poverty rate in the nation. And so, we view this as an opportunity where we can help, as you guys are working to address, my understanding is at the state level, to create a plan for the reduction of poverty, and especially for child poverty. And so what I'd like to do is walk through a couple of examples, but I want to just assure you that this is kind of our approach to poverty. We truly believe poverty can be outsmarted, and that social service community contains the innovations that show us how to end poverty. And that evidence, rather than hunches or assumptions or anecdotes, really light the path to learning what works, with whom, and at what frequency, sequence, and intensity. And we also firmly believe that families in poverty truly deserve interventions that work. So the way we do this at LEO is through randomized control trials, which are considered the gold standard when it comes to evaluation. So it's a really top-notch way to create evidence. And what randomized control trials, sometimes we abbreviate those as RCTs, what those do is they allow you to attribute any differences in outcomes between different participants in the program and others to the program, so that it's not other reasons that people benefit from a program, like maybe they were selected in because something about them made them more likely to succeed, or other factors. So what a randomized control trial really does is it allows you to select a group exactly like the people getting the program in all ways but one. And really the only difference then between group A, group B, apples to apples, is that they've been exposed to the program that we're testing. And so what this looks like at the individual level is first, we work with the social service providers to identify the group of eligible participants. So based on whatever criteria your program is trying to serve, whether it's people experiencing homelessness, people experiencing underemployment or unemployment, or children experiencing low literacy rates, identifying a pool of eligible people. And then what happens next is we randomly assign them through a mechanism like a lottery, where some participants go into treatment, so they go into the program that we believe is going to benefit them, and others go into the control group. And I'll say here, because it's a question we get a lot, is how is this fair and how is this ethical? And the best answer for that really is the truth, which is we would only ever randomize and do this kind of study when there are more people, more eligible people for a program than the program can actually serve. And what we do know about social service programs is they often have a scarcity of resources. So it is most often the case that programs are only serving a fraction of the people actually eligible for a program. And so that is an opportunity in a sense for a randomized control trial to happen, and so that people are either going into the program or they are part of a control group and not receiving the program. They are still, of course, eligible for any other services they might be qualified for. And the third stage here then is after the program happens, to measure outcomes. And so you'll see in these kind of two different boxes that the participants in each group are virtually the same. We control for characteristics like gender, race, ethnicity, family background, geography, other characteristics like that. And then we compare the outcomes of people getting the program to the control group who were just like them when we found our eligible population, but didn't receive the program because we couldn't offer it to everyone. And so that random assignment is what really allows us to isolate the effect of a program so that we know the reason people are doing better that went through the program is really just because of the program. There was no other real difference between them and others like them that didn't get the program. And so I have 4 examples here of programs that Leo has evaluated. We've partnered with providers to evaluate and shown impact for these programs. And so the first one is called the Goodwill Excel programs. This is a program that was designed and run first in Indiana. And the problem this program sought to address and still seeks to address is people without high school diplomas earn lower wages and experience poor economic conditions. And so the designers of this program wanted to address that issue, and they developed and run a free accelerated learning program for adults to earn in Indiana what's called a Core 40 high school diploma. So this is a high school equivalency diploma, different than a GED. And on average, they complete this in about 2.5 years. Some are quicker, takes a little longer, depending on what they were able to complete when they were in high school. The result, the impact of this program, is that program participants are 12% more likely to be formally employed than non-participants and had a 38% increase in earnings. So almost 40% higher earnings because of participating in the Excel program and getting a high school diploma. Another important outcome that we found is that about 50% of the participants in the study moved into the health sector. So not only did they then have a higher chance of being employed in a formal sector and higher earnings, they were in a sector like the healthcare sector that has potential for continued growth in earnings and employment. That program is now operating in about 8 states with a goal of operating in up to 15 across the country at 80 different schools is their target by 2030. Another program that we evaluated is called the Padua program. This program was designed by Catholic Charities of Fort Worth, Texas. And the problem that they wanted to address is, of course, the high poverty rates in Tarrant County, Texas, and nationwide. And really this challenge that despite the fact that there are many social programs trying to address individual issues like housing or employment or food insecurity, there's little coordination of case management. And so what the folks at Catholic Charities Fort Worth did was they developed the Padua program, which is a holistic, intensive wraparound case management program that assists families for the duration. So the goal is to walk alongside families until they exit poverty and reach self-sufficiency. And the program has 5 main components. They have an individualized service plan. They have an assessment of kind of what the needs are and across a different variety of different social service areas and individual needs areas. There is a case team, so very low caseloads, and a case team, a 2-person team that helps each family. There is this case management, so really helping people who go through the program navigate where they can find services, how to apply for programs, how to piece together the things that will help them move to self-sufficiency. And then the 5th and final component of Padua is flexible financial assistance that really allows the case managers to smooth out gaps that sometimes occur when program eligibility creates, like a benefits cliff or other kind of challenges that people experience as they navigate out of poverty. The result of this program, the impact of this program, is what our study has shown is that participants on average experience 25% increase in full-time employment. And more specifically, participants who were unemployed, which is not all participants, but those who were unemployed before the study started, so before they enrolled, experienced an even more significant increase in employment, 67% more likely to be full-time employed, and a 46% increase in earnings. This is a large positive effect size for programs working to move people out of poverty. The Padua program is now being packaged, and we are working to help them scale and replicate this program in other locations around the country. A third program that Leo has partnered with a provider with to create evidence is a homelessness prevention program in Santa Clara County, California. The problem this program was designed to address is the extremely high rates of homelessness in Santa Clara and across the nation. And so what this intervention is it's one-time financial assistance to families who are really at risk of homelessness, so they are not yet in a shelter or on the street unsheltered, and to help prevent them from losing their home, whether that's an apartment or a single-family home. And the result of this program, the impact of this program, is that there is a decreased instance of chronic homelessness. So those who don't get the assistance are 3 times more likely to experience homelessness. And what's also significant about this intervention is the people who did get the program, who do get the one-time financial assistance, are more likely to be stably housed, not just in the month following their assistance, but for up to a year that we've been able to track their housing stability. So even though it is a one-time, short-term intervention, it has long-term impact. And in terms of cost benefit or return on investment, the exciting news here is that for every $1 spent on emergency financial assistance, this led to almost $2.50 of $2.50 in county savings. The 4th and final program that I would like to share with you about is a program called Stay the Course. This one was actually also developed by our partners in Catholic Charities of Fort Worth, Texas. And the problem they really wanted to address is they were having clients come into their agency who were enrolled in community college or who had been enrolled in community college, and they were seeing a lot of low degree completion rates. So about 1 in 10 people who were enrolling in the community college were completing a degree within 3 years. And so completion rates are low, dropout rates are high. What this intervention does is provides for community college students 2 things: case management and emergency financial assistance. And so that case management looks somewhat similar to what I described for the Padua program. It's the same provider, but really focused on an individualized plan to help these community college students with the non-academic, non-financial aid barriers that they encounter as they try to complete a degree and change careers, change jobs, and improve their economic outcomes and stability. And so the case management here is really focused on the non-academic and non-financial aid barriers, but it also is individualized, so it depends on what the student needs and what their family situation is. And it also empowers the students because it is individualized, but it is also co-created where the case manager, they call them navigators, is really working with the student to identify what are the barriers that you're experiencing or that you worry that you'll experience to being able to complete a degree. So what are the results? What's the impact of this program? What our study has shown is that there is increased college persistence and completion, especially for women, who saw a 31% increase in the likelihood of earning an associate's degree. This is an almost unheard of increase in terms of effect size, is quite significant. We also saw a reduced inactivity in college. And so the cost benefit analysis shows that the earnings boost from degree to completion covered the cost of stay the course intervention after about 3.5 years. So that after 3.5 years, the extra cost of paying for stay the course is paid for by the earnings that students get that are significantly higher because of their college degree. So these are 4 programs and really 4 different providers, well, 3 different providers that we have partnered with. We currently have over 100 programs that we have evaluated or are in the process of evaluating around the country. We have studies in half the states, in 25 states. And as I mentioned before, we work with a lot of nonprofits. We work with local governments to do these evaluations and with some state governments. And so a way that we could potentially partner with you all in the Empowering Families Council is to help develop a research agenda to create some strategies for implementing either the creation of more evidence, so doing studies like I just described, but in your state, in different communities in your state, or the final point here would be to replicate. So programs that I've described here or others that we have partnered with to create evidence and are currently working to scale up in other places around the country. If there are programs of interest to you, we could certainly move forward with talking through those different programs and seeing if any of them would be ripe for replication in one of your communities. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today via Zoom video, and we would welcome questions in follow-up to your event on the 18th. Thank you.
We certainly do appreciate that presentation. There was a lot of great loaded information in there. Mr. Costanza, I have a few questions, and I will ask if any of you have questions, if you would just go ahead and hit the raise your hand button so that I can see it here on the monitor and I can acknowledge you. One of the questions that I wanted to ask was regarding the Goodwill program, which is the program that talked about it's not like the high set program, but it does put them on a track. I want to say for maybe 2 or 2.5 years, I think she said, that allows them to earn more. I would like to know more about that particular program.
Yeah, I would like to be able to, along with that presentation, there was some background slides. But so I guess what I could say is that I've been working with the University of Notre Dame, mainly with Catholic Charities, to look at poverty reduction. So the specific programs that's in other states that they're evaluating, I certainly can get more information for you on all of these programs. The one I'm a little bit more, the Dallas-Fort Worth, the one that I was most familiar with was making sure people finish their community college system, and they were dropping out and just a little intentionality. And then with their homeless program. So I would like to be able to field any questions, but I'm not certainly versed in those specific pilots. We would hope they would have been, here to present.
Yes.
But they did, we're in communication with them pretty constantly. And so hopefully you maybe one of those programs, like you mentioned, spurred some interest. And so they're basically offering whether to, say, try to replicate some of those same programs. They work with state governments or do more research that we want to do. And most of the services are either not expensive or free the way Notre Dame works. So maybe if the council would like, maybe in future meetings, they could come down, and present their full array of programs to y'all and have a more robust conversation.
I would love to do that. As a matter of fact, I was sitting here looking I know January is a pretty packed month, so I'm thinking maybe early February, and that way it would give
They could
people
come
enough
down.
time to plan to come, because one of the things that she said that really grabbed my attention was this 31% increase, especially among women in terms of earning and getting a degree. And one of the things that was a common denominator, again, going back to the children as a part of the child death review panel, was these were all cases with women, with children who were very unstable, living in very unstable conditions where the trajectory of those children just did not look promising at all. And so, unfortunately, there was a death. But many times there were siblings still with those families. And, one of the common threads was the housing, the poverty, but women who were not making or earning enough money. And so, it made me think about another resolution that I authored for us to take a look at women who could possibly go back to community college or some type of degreed or skill set type program and actually earn, get a degree or get some kind of skill set that would allow them to make more money. We know that that is the crux of everything that we are talking about. $7.25 an hour is not enough. Most people have to work 2 or 3 jobs to try to stay afloat. It's just not enough.
I think your point's well taken. I was talking to Bishop Marshall in Alexandria Diocese. It's a very rural area, and he was trying to figure out how to connect the families that experience poverty with healthcare fields. And I think with that study, it was called Stay the Course, and that they were able to pair the student going through community technical college with case management and a little bit of financial assistance to get them over that hump so they didn't drop out. So what you find is an intentionality you need to be intentional about it. And so that would be an example. And then you might remember she said they were connected to healthcare careers, which we know
Yes.
we need that
Yes.
across the state.
Yes.
So I think they're presenting along with is offering the council innovative thought processes, paradigms, frameworks, coordination that we can address poverty. And, it may take a while to build up, but there are models that work. And so they offer a very, I would say, aggressive research-based model using control groups and not. But they're okay with it ethically because there's so many people who need the service. It's not like you're turning down anybody for services. So I think what we would hope, and as you mentioned, maybe in this next year, we continue to use this council as a think tank, a framework to really drill down on innovation and poverty like we've done across everything else.
Yes.
And bring it together and bring in Notre Dame. Even the model we have is called Transition Success. You have some information about that on how to use social determinants across departments. If every department was looking at the 20 domains of social determinants and having some common standards of care across departments, they're doing it in Hawaii and in Wisconsin. So what would be offering is more thought processes, thought-provoking processes, frameworks throughout next year, if the council desires to continue to work in this area and also to continue to see how funding could continue in some of these programs that we mentioned before.
Well, you certainly have hit the nail on the head, and that's what we're going to be working towards.
Yeah.
Ms. Evans.
Thank you all for the presentation. It was really very informative. The one that I was really interested in was the homelessness prevention, the one that is in California, and learning about how much that one time on average intervention was, and just looking at the rate of return of the investment after you put in that initial investment, how it saves on the back end. I know that studies have shown that if we can stop the stem of homelessness at the beginning, then it's really more cost effective. So I would really be interested in knowing like the initial
Okay.
amount of that investment.
If you'd be comfortable, we take it, mental notes, and I'll get back with specifics. And either have them come back at a certain point, the senator, or just continue to give you information throughout until they can come back.
Thank you.
One thing that's really good about this is that this meeting is recorded and it's going to be in the archives. So everybody can go back and listen to it because there was so much being given. I know that I didn't process everything, but I'm going to go back and listen to it myself. And so I don't see any additional questions at this time. I see Mr. Brett Hyman in the audience, and I just wanted to acknowledge you. I don't know if you want to say anything. I know that Sammy is here, and Sammy and I go way, way back, but I know that under the new administration, you have certainly been at my office a couple of times trying to address many of the questions and issues that we've had. So I just want to give you an opportunity to say something if you would like.
Thank you, Senator Barrow.
Okay.
And my name is Brett Hanneman. I'm Director of Governmental Affairs with DCFS. I think I went to we had an interagency council on homelessness Tuesday, I believe. I think the statistic that jumped out at me, Senator, was in the Monroe area and surrounding 16 parishes, out of all the homeless people, half of them are children. And that's something with our department that we need to know about this, and then how do we address it? If we hit things on the front end, there's so many back savings, savings on the back end. When we look at foster care, which is something that Secretary Matlock is passionate about, if we can get this kids help on the front end, then we keep them out of the system on the back end. Right. And that, of course, is going to save money. And that's the same thing that Tom is talking about here, is handling these things on the front end. And as an educator, former educator, I think what I like seeing is a 0 to 5 in targeting and getting in there and making sure that these kids learn and get established in the reading, writing, mathematics, and what have you, because those are critical ages that we educate children.
Oh, absolutely. And you know that in terms of brain development, science proved that, the first 3 years are the most critical years. Then, after then, the first 5 years, right, the next 2 years. And then everything else is kind of built on for the life of a child. What I know, contrary to what some may believe, is that no one wants to be poor. No one wants to live in poverty. No one wants to ask for government assistance. There's only a slim margin of people who does. I would say 1%. It may be up to 10, but I can tell you majority of the people want to take care of themselves. Yes. They do not want to come and ask government for help. And when you have tried, and I'm reminded, and I'm trying not to be emotional. Last week was a hard week for me. I had 3 different committees that were very emotional. My last committee was regarding, what was that last committee? I remember the father who came. We were talking about child sexual trauma. Because all of this is all woven together. That's what people don't understand and see. Because of when I looked at the child review panel information, there was a case that I believe that there was some child sexual abuse that was happening. And it may have been kind of along the lines of sex trafficking. I don't know that for sure, but as I looked at the children and some of the things that I read or didn't or could interpret in my reading, it appeared that could have been happening in that family. Because some people, they keep hitting a brick wall and they don't know where to go. And then they begin to do things that they never thought they would do. Or things that have been done to them that they thought was okay. Which goes back to ACEs.
Yeah, adverse child events, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all connected. It's all connected. And if we really want to change it, which we can, we absolutely can. I like the intentionality, and I want us to. My commitment for the rest of my term of being here is to really eradicate poverty and to really change the trajectory of this state. This state has a lot of rich resources. I was in New Orleans yesterday for a graduation, and one thing I love is just I love our culture. There's no place like Louisiana. I don't care where you go. Bar none, we are the best. And I think we can actually rise above the challenges that we face. I love overcoming poverty. I love outsmarting poverty. And I'm going to start saying that because we can. And let's do that together. I want to say that I was looking at y'all website. I like what y'all have added to the website. I really do. This is really catchy. I was like, wow, okay, this is really good. But the only thing is for people like me who don't often go, it's a lot of great information. And I'm just trying to figure out how we may, and maybe the people who need it the most, they see it, right? Because they are going. The only thing that I would ask, and I'm noticing, not just with y'all website, just in general, it seems like the names of people are always hidden. You have to kind of find folks. And maybe I'm old school. Like, I like to have a name and a phone number. So when I call, I know who I'm calling for. But just in general, and I'm just saying because I had to kind of figure out where do I find the people if I needed to call. And this is just not for you guys. This is for state government for sure in general because I have the oversight of that in terms of looking at those websites. I don't want people to have to look for y'all. Like who do you call? Who do you talk to? Now, once I finally found the page, it was right there. There's the secretary and everybody else. But I had to find
If you
it.
have any trouble, you just call me.
But I'm not talking about for me. I'm talking about for the average citizen. I know that we are moving to that era, and I guess maybe I'm older. Tom, help me out. I don't know. Maybe the kids are good with that, but I like talking to people. But anyway, I love y'all new website. I love the way that all the things that pop up. I wish I'd have known that y'all had the foster, what was it, the foster program the other day. It was on the 12th. I would have came because that's something I'm very, very passionate about and really want to work on finding a way of how we find more foster families. But anyway, I love the page.
Senator, thank you for bringing all these departments and everybody together. Because I think collaborative effort here, we can eradicate this and take care of it. I want to thank you for
We're going to outsmart poverty. That's my new word. Are there any further comments? I want to thank you, sir, for the work that you guys do out of New Orleans. I know we didn't have any questions for you, but I would like to have a copy of that presentation to hand out to everybody. I am looking for a new date that we would have a meeting, and before we begin to kind of wrap up, I want to see if we have any public comments. Anybody from the public that would like to speak? Sure, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give everybody on the panel an opportunity to speak, Mr. Guillory.
Okay, I have two things, especially for the members, if you can please make sure that you signed in because we're going to do minutes and we're going to send all the information out to everyone. The second thing's related, the Notre Dame presentation, there were supposed to be slides that we could not see. We're going to send those to everyone also.
That's good to know.
So we need your information on the sign-in sheets. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Parr?
Thank you very much. So, first of all, thank you very much for, coming back to this council and reviving it after COVID. I mean, and I appreciate the effort, and there's a lot of other people that would appreciate it as well. I will say this is not really a PAR area. This is not a core competency of us. We do a lot of work in transparency and good government, finances, tax and spending, and it includes education. We do a lot of work like in early childhood and actually across the spectrum. And so I'll probably, as we get going, I'll probably be the person to ask the most questions. There's sort of a freeing element of that, so I hope y'all have some patience with me. I will say what probably, I have a lot of area in academic literature. Again, not in this area, but I am interested in it as we can get maybe some more detail in there. I love data, and I love processes. And as we start thinking about the next meeting and what we do, and this is just my naive talking, so feel free to disregard this. It seems it would be good to get the list of all the council members and their contact information. Honestly, and this is probably a little bit more work, if we could get some of the key state-level stakeholders, like active chairs, just whether people are on the council or not, just so you can get a sense of what I wouldn't even start doing all of the local people outside of maybe the big ones in New Orleans, just because that would be multiplying everything to 64 plus municipalities. So, but eventually maybe. It seems like in terms of this whole issue, as we look at it, there's so many different things involved. You have acute issues and systemic issues. You have, economics, getting a job, education, housing, transportation, healthcare, criminal justice, technology, and trying to make sure these groups aren't siloed and can talk to each other. But let's be honest, within any of these groups, let's take criminal justice or healthcare, there's silos there. You get different hospitals can't necessarily talk to each other. You get different. So it is a very ambitious project, but it's a needed one. I think probably my recommendation would be we probably need to at least, I know I need it, but I think it would be a good idea with one of the things, instead of jumping in and saying, hey, let's do these particular projects, let's take a breath. Maybe we can have the people from Notre Dame, I'd love them present on sort of just a broader determinants of poverty. And so we can look, this is what we know leads to it. These are the issues that affect it. Just sort of a broad, high-level approach. And then after that, we maybe start breaking it down by issue, maybe by geographic area. So we look at, for example, homeless, and then we could have people in different parts of the state testify on that and what's been done, what works, what doesn't work. And then after that, and I would love to hear also from the people on this panel. Like, I would love to hear DCFS and how they internally work. I know a little bit of that because I know the budget process, but that only takes you so far. I know what they say in their budget requests. But and also United Way and all the groups here, it would be useful to hear from. And then I guess at some point we're planning probably to do a report that has recommendations and probably said, hey, look, out of all the areas we need to do, this is probably the best bang for the buck immediately, and we should probably ask for funding and from state, local, and other charities, and then disseminate that through presentations. And I like videos because that's where we are today in society. But I think this is very worth the extent that the park can add anything, and I don't know, what we can add, but hopefully, we'll have people here when we can make it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Procopio. You guys were great value. And again, it's all there's a line that to me goes through every factor of our lives. And so I believe that the value that you guys would bring would be invaluable to this council. And so we are so glad that you're here. And I was taking some notes from you too, because I think, for me, I always like to set goals so I can know when I've made it. At least if I'm working in the right direction. And so I think that's real important. So I would definitely like for Notre Dame to be here. And as I was looking at their page and looking at the states that they are working in, the southern states that I noticed was Texas and maybe Tennessee. You want to come on up? And then I want to ask everybody on the panel, certainly who has not spoken, I would like for you to say something as we begin to wrap up. And if you can look at, so today is Wednesday. Does Wednesdays work for everybody for the most part, or do we need another day of the week? Okay. Wednesdays work? So it just can't be the second Wednesday? Okay, all right.
Yeah. So Notre Dame had 4 programs. 3 were in the Dallas-Fort Worth Catholic Charities, and 1 was in Santa Clara at another provider in California.
Oh, California,
Now,
okay.
the other thing I might, and you may have a handout on, is when we originally looked at this program or looking at poverty and how to coordinate state, like breaking down silos, you may have a handout on a program called Transition to Success. That's the one that's in Hawaii, it's in Wisconsin, it's in 7 other states where they're running a pilot that Dr. Marcella Wilson wrote a book relative to poverty as if you would think of poverty as say you go to a doctor and you say you're diagnosed with high blood pressure. Well, there's actually a standard of care that, but when we come in and the client is in poverty, we don't. And so what all of these models and this thought process, the transition to success model is saying, hey, if we had these standards of care, like Stephanie mentioned, financial education, trauma-informed care, employment, a care network, a support team, if you had these standards of care applied to families in poverty, you can move them. And so, and it has a other part where it's a case management coordination model around state departments. That if all the state departments got together and agreed on, say, a certain assessment tool and a certain standards of care, she was so, I guess, forward-thinking is that CMS has a code of extreme poverty that if we could prove that the standards of care work, then you could get Medicaid reimbursed for that service. Now, that's a little forward-thinking, but it's about the fundamentals of poverty and looking at it through the social determinants, which you might know all departments talk about, right? The health department talks about social services. The family service talks about social determinants. So I think we would just be offering from the University of Notre Dame these models from transition success models, and they have essentially 2 components. How do you actually work with the individual family, but then how do you create a coordinated system of care that all departments can work on? So I would say that's 2 strands of thought, that it's an individual intervention, but to break down silos across departments, the transition success model is trying to do that in 7 other states. And so Dr. Marcella Wilson has offered to also come at some point, if the council so would like, to talk about her pilots that are running this pilots in other states that look at Head Start families. She's having much success with Head Start because built into Head Start is a family advocate. So we ran that pilot in Catholic Charities in New Orleans, and that's really a built-in system already, that if you were to develop the social determinants around that and have a consistent coordinated care system, you could, once they get out of Head Start, sometimes there's a downturn, right?
Right.
We want to prevent that.
That's right.
And so I just think this could be a great think tank and bring in the best minds and practices here in Louisiana, across the nation, and really kind of say it's unacceptable that we're at 49th in poverty. It's just not. And so that's what we would, I guess, as Catholic Charities and the council, and bringing in models to just have some really good, honest conversation about this, and then turn it into action points like Mr. Gurley said, that at some point, and Doctor, you said, so we have to kind of convene and all this and say, look, this is at least what we could do, at least initially.
Very well taken, and I was also taking some notes because this is what I'm going to be looking for. So we're going to do that. So I would like to invite both of them.
Okay.
And you need to tell me what that looks like so we can figure out how we get that done. And if we can have them come for maybe, and I'm not looking at a calendar, but I'm thinking in February.
Okay.
Which Wednesday you said? Not the third? Second Wednesday. Okay, so not the second Wednesday. So either the first or the third Wednesday of February, and we'll set that date. And if anybody have a conflict with that, please let me know, because I certainly want each of you here as we're continuing to build. And so I am going to start on my left at the end with Ms. Williamson to make comments.
Is my mic on? Like I
is.
need it. Good morning, Jolie Williamson, Children's Cabinet. Thank you so much for the information. Y'all say silos. When I came in as an educator of 14 years, January 8th, my big word that I would use were bubbles. I said, we're all in our own little bubble, whether it's law enforcement, social workers, DCFS, whatever realm you're in, we're in our bubble and we're doing amazing things in those bubbles, but it's time to burst out of those bubbles. And I've been preaching that since my first month in here in January. So I've seen that we're all on the same page with wanting to break down those bubbles or silos. So data is power is what I'm learning too. Mr. Anthony Celestine in Calcasieu Parish let me in on that. He said, data is power, and I'm 100% behind that because we have a new subcommittee within the CCAB called Partners in Protecting Children Subcommittee, and it's based on Act 40 with the Ezekiel Law and Representative Edmondson's Resolution 305. And what that subcommittee is doing, we met yesterday, they are looking at DCFS as a whole and making recommendations to improve it. So any data that Tripwise has, Catholic Charities has, we would love for you and appreciate if you could share any data with that subcommittee to help improve Louisiana, not just DCFS, but Louisiana, the quality of life for families and children of Louisiana, because that is all of our top priorities. In reference to the October 21st meeting where you asked Ursula Anderson, LCTF Executive Director, for the survey that was emailed to her, and you said, I wish I would have known about the survey, and she apologized, because one thing I like is direct communication and preaching the bursting of the bubbles. But that survey that was given out was for the 5-year state plan that Louisiana Children's Trust Fund has put forth. And I traveled all 9 regions with Ursula Anderson in August, September, October, and everything that y'all talked about in regards to broadband, in regards to internet access, in regards to transportation, across the board. Yes, every region is different with the needs of families and children, but across the board, those were some things that were standard that was needed and necessary. So that Children's Caucus really gave us some great qualitative and quantitative data because of that survey. And that 5-year state plan is going to be coming out at the beginning, sometime in January, beginning of 2025. So please tap into that research to help you. So we need to share data. You know, I've come to see, I don't want to say some agencies gatekeep data, but maybe we're just not asking for it. So I'm asking, please share your data with my Partners in Protecting Children subcommittee. I'm going to get your card and information before I leave so I can share that with the chair of the Partners in Protecting Children subcommittee. So I believe that's all I wanted to say. Keep bursting those bubbles, breaking down those silos, reaching across the table, across the board, and building those relationships. Because until we do that, change is not going to occur. And everything that you hear, like I said at that October 21st meeting when I held up that old 5-year state plan from the last 5 years, I said, don't just look at the data. We need to utilize the data. We need to tap into it. Oh, great, let me just look through this book and not do anything with it. That's where we need to go to our legislators. We need to go to our senators and say, hey, this is what it's showing. What can we write up to make sure we change this? You know, I can't really do that as the executive director of the cabinet, but I can bring forth the information and share the information that is needed. So thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Williamson, and you are correct. And I will say on behalf of the legislature, we have to have the data. We need to see the faces. We need to see the connection of how it all goes together, and then reprioritize in many cases where those funding dollars are being sent to. Ms. Is it Roussel or Rousseau? Roussel. Ms. Roussel.
Thank you so much, Senator Barrow. I love the enthusiasm. It sounds like we are here to get work done, which is so exciting. And, you know, Invest in Louisiana is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that's been working in the space of really bringing state policy to bear to improve the lives of low and moderate income households in Louisiana. And so we do that through research, we do that through advocacy, and so I'll go on the record by offering to bring some of that research to this group as we hone in on Louisiana and we think about what's needed here and what can be effective here. And some of the areas that we look at, we certainly look at budget and tax as well, but economic opportunity, our opportunity youth population in the state, our social safety net, healthcare, criminal justice, because it all is interconnected. And so we really do believe that in order to support our families to really move forward as a state, we have to look at all of those different pieces. So just really so grateful for your leadership over many years in lifting up families, lifting up children, and then prioritizing that in our state capital. And so thank you for that. We're excited to be a part of the work moving forward.
Well, tell Jan I say hello, and certainly, I appreciate you guys always being that voice, right? And coming to ensure that we understand the implication of our policy decisions, because it's all directly connected and have a direct implication in terms of how it affects families. So thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Ms. Evans with Housing.
I'll be very brief. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. This seems like it's going to be a terrific council to be able to be on and to work to make sure that all the needs are addressed so that we can work together. So thank you for your leadership and look forward to.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. I know Ms. Payne had to leave. Ms. Berthelot.
Well, it's an honor to be a part of this group. I really enjoyed learning from today. Thoughts that come to my mind for the future is I would really appreciate hearing from the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, because some of the things that we heard today, I feel like some tactics are happening in Louisiana now, but the dots may need to be better connected. There are supports that are happening at technical, community college, and even university campuses that are similar to what I heard today, but maybe lack the scaled metrics and evaluation pieces. And so I think having those leaders with us for the Notre Dame visit might be helpful for them to say, okay, now that we heard this, we want to share the assets that are on the ground now. So that comes to mind. And then also there's an effort that has been going on for several months that started out with the governor launching a task force. I think the name of it is the Louisiana Workforce and Social Service Reform Task Force, and it's been a effort that I am not on that task force, but I've attended as a member of the public, and what I saw them do, they're going to be producing a conclusion soon. But some of the dialogue they had at that table have ties to this one. And so once those conclusions are published, it may be worthy for us to take that in, but also what they did to get there was organize themselves with several subcommittee groups. And it was organized, all the subcommittees were open to the public. And so the things that we've talked about today and all the things that need to be done for these people may need us to consider how we should organize to grapple and tackle everything that we talked about today. So I think talking about how we organize would be a good use of time. And I'm ready for you to put me to work.
Ooh, you said the magic word.
I'm ready. I mean, it's important. And so in my area of expertise is scaled community-based networks. So that's where I come into play.
Well, I know Miss Charmaine Capiosi, and I know how passionate she is, and I can feel your passion as well. And you're right, we have to. And I was going to say at the end that this is going to be a working council.
Yes,
I want everybody to know we're going to be working.
We should be. And Senator Barrett, one thing that you could coach people like me on is there are many dialogues that happen where people in poverty or those that struggle to make ends meet need to be heard and represented.
Yes.
And so as a council, I would really like us to flag those moments and with intentionality. The people that struggle to make ends meet and struggle in poverty, they feel very unheard and invisible. And not sure, I think that's one of the things that I think about is, are we becoming too comfortable with the struggle? Are they, so that's one thing. I love my state. I want to live here forever. But I get concerned that we are comfortable with the level of struggle that exists. And so that's on my mind a great deal. So I think we can really make a difference here. And I look forward to working with everyone in the coming time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Berthelot. And we are going to outsmart poverty intentionally. Ms. Kay?
Hi, for anyone who didn't hear, I'm with the Louisiana Department of Revenue. I just wanted to thank everyone on this council for having us. I also wanted to thank the Catholic Charities for all the work that you're doing within the Baton Rouge and New Orleans communities. It seems to be making a change and actually affecting families who really need it. And thank you, Senator Barrow, as well, for your leadership on this council.
I want to thank you in particular for coming, because of all the departments that have been invited, many of them have like a direct connection, right? Revenue, and it's it's important. People want to get their taxes and tax, rebates and all that kind of stuff that we do, right? Tax credits. But I know that your boss really understands the importance of these task force and that he made sure that you were here. And so I really just want to thank, I'm going to tell him personally thank you, but I want to thank you as well, because this is very important, and we all have to have all hands on deck to get to the end goal. Absolutely. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Sanders.
My name is Shauna Sanders. I am here on behalf of the Department of Education, specifically the Early Childhood Division, where I currently serve as Chief of Staff. I would like to thank all of you for coming today and inviting us to this meeting. I look forward to working with all of you, specifically in that early childhood space, and I am ready and willing to contribute whatever we have at my department to help you guys, whether that's data, resources, manpower.
Well, certainly I do appreciate you guys being here as well, because, again, this to me is like the core. So DCFS is the core, education is the core, housing is the core. So there's some points that are the core to me that have to be at the table. I'm glad that you are here, and I thank you for representing the Department of Education, particularly early childhood education. Yeah. And so, Mr. Co-Chair, would you like to kind of wrap up with some final comments here?
Sure. One thing I want to do is thank Ms. Ashley Sias, who works with me, for organizing this meeting, for helping get the handouts and working with Tom to finally get this meeting on the books and arranging it. And I want to thank all the members who came, and hopefully we can get a little more participation at our next meeting, but now that we seem to all be eager to ramp it up. So, and I appreciate everything you do, Senator Barrow.
Well, again, thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley, for helping to coordinate us, and my assistant as well, who keeps me on track. When I got here, I got some news in terms of what my responsibilities will be. But again, thank all of you for helping us make it all work together, because we could not do this work alone. I was trying to pull up the calendar right quick to kind of see. So the first Wednesday is the 5th, and the third Wednesday is the 19th. I don't know when Mardi Gras is. Anybody know? It's at the end of the month. So you think the 19th? I was going to say tentatively say the 5th, because we, Mardi Gras, we turn to a whole different state. People don't show up. I'm just saying. Yes, please.
Good morning. I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware that
Workforce Commission is here.
Oh,
Diana
okay.
James, Louisiana Workforce Commission, Chief of Staff. I have enjoyed every presentation today. Our mission is that we put people to work. However, we do realize that we touch every individual that various departments actually work with directly, and so it's an honor and a blessing to be here. I am a product of East Baton Rouge Parish as well as St. Helena Parish. So to know that we're going to, kind of dive into dealing with poverty in those areas is really meaningful work, and it means a lot to me as well. So thank you guys so much for everyone that's here, for this council, and just for having us be a part as well.
Thank you so much for coming up because I had you guys flagged.
It's okay. I've been in the back the whole time. I'm here the entire time. I snuck in a little.
You have. I saw you because I love your jacket.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
But I did, there are several agencies that I didn't see marked off, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I personally call them because all of these are integral parts.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they are all connected. So I'm glad that you came up and made sure that we know that you were here.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, sign-in sheet.
Mardi Gras is March 4th.
March 4th. I know the closer you get to Mardi Gras, the likelihood of having folks show up is going to be a little less. So maybe the 19th is not a bad time, and we will confirm that very shortly after I talk with Mr. Costanza about the availability of the two guests we've asked to come, because certainly I think that's a good place for us to start, along with individuals like Alice, people who are already doing this work right here on the ground, who have the data for Louisiana, so that we can really begin to look at intentionally, like where do we really want to start and really setting up what's going to be our goals. So with that said, again, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I look forward to see you next year. This meeting will be archived. And I want to say this, people watch our hearings all the time. So I was getting messages from several individuals, and I'm going to mention two because they ask specific questions. So Cindy Bishop with CCAP, or with our early childhood education, was one who's been watching since the very beginning. And Brandon Melissa, who actually told me to tell you, Mr. Costanza, hello, and how much she loved you. But, there are always people who are watching these hearings and listening to what's going on and who wants to weigh in. So at some point, I want us to make some kind of public calendar available so we can have people to come in and we can hear their personal stories or challenges. So with that said, everyone, please have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you at the first of next year. Thank you.